I really have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just going to see where this goes. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy that you're here. In this episode, I want to talk about me getting to Tennessee from Utah and that initial shock and change. I think, like most people can relate to, when you change anything in your life, I think there's just this period of like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Was this the right move? At least if you're an overthinker like me, there's a lot of things you think about when you make a change because you really want to understand, like, is this the right fit? I think I had to learn a lot about just going with the flow and trusting that I'm guided to where I'm supposed to be. And that, I remember my mom saying, because I was so, I was like, am I really moving? Like, when I made up my mind that night that I looked at houses in Tennessee, a little prior to that, I had thought, okay, maybe Oklahoma, I have family there, maybe Montana, I love the energy there. I had thought a number of places, but when I finally landed on Tennessee, I remember as it got closer, I was like, "Mom, am I really moving?" And she's like, "Yeah, if you want to, do it. You can always move back." And weirdly, that had never even crossed my mind. And I don't know if that's because I never felt like I should move back once I go, but just knowing that I could move back and that was on the table, it kind of made it not so serious of a choice, right? Like, yeah, go for it, make the decision. If it's not where you're supposed to be, you can always move back. I don't know why that didn't cross my mind. And I know that some of you may be listening and thinking, that I mean, I don't think a lot of you from Utah are thinking this because I feel like most of us stay in the state of Utah, and many of us have not ever lived anywhere else. But if you're from anywhere else, and I noticed that even more from the number of transplants in Tennessee, a lot of people have moved and lived in a lot of places in their life. But for someone like me or someone from Utah, you're like full and grown and you've experienced pretty much your whole life in one place. It's just such a crazy concept to think about living somewhere else. So when I first made the decision, or I not I, the decision was kind of along and coming, but when I first got to Tennessee, fast forward, this is rewind. We're in the end of February. And what happened is my divorce was finalized on January 30th. And after I had sold the house that we lived in to my ex-husband, I had like until the end of February to leave the house. And so it was kind of a crunch. And it was honestly probably the best thing for me because it gave me like a push date. It's almost like that's why, even in corporate America, like why you need a roadmap and you need a project plan, you need timelines because otherwise it's so easy to make excuses to not do the things that you know you want to do because nothing's really holding you to it. And I think had I not had to leave and I had, maybe said, oh, I'll wait a month and live with so and so, or if I would have done any of that, I think it would have just been harder. So I know it worked out exactly how it should have. So here I am with the timeline and I get an Airbnb. I book it. It's gonna be in East Nashville, and at the time I'm hearing, "Okay, that's where I should that's the spot," you know? So I'm like, "Fine, we'll get an Airbnb in East Nashville for 30 days, and then we'll kinda roll from there." And so that February was so crazy just breaking down all the things that it took to leave a house you'd lived in with someone for and I'm trying to think of the exact time, but at least 10 years. And I honestly had not really anticipated how difficult it would be to go through your things and pretty much decide what you're not taking, what you're taking, what you're leaving. I mean, just all of the things that goes along with that. It was such a overly emotional part of the process for me, and I wasn't taking much. I literally got the smallest storage unit possible. He was getting pretty much everything in the house, but I there was a few things like my paddleboard and golf clubs and those kinds of things that I was going to store with me, but I could only fit so much in my little white BMW sedan that I was paid off and had way too many miles on it, and that's what I was gonna take with me to Tennessee. And those few weeks of all of that, I remember, gosh, so many feelings, but one of which was and I feel like people can relate to this, when you're making a decision, you know what you want to do, and then some wrench gets thrown in your plans. It's so easy to just want to forget it and change your mind. And I remember that, like, the week before, it might have been a week or 2 before I was going to be moving or driving to Tennessee with my few things and my dog and my one of my best friends. I was driving up to go hiking up Mill Creek Canyon, and it was snowing really bad. And I'm driving, it's me and the dog. I'm on the freeway, snowing really like I said, snowing really bad, and my car just starts saying, like, some message like, "Don't drive your car anymore, pull over," pretty much. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And so I don't know why, I don't think to try to get off the exit on the freeway, but instead, the girl I am, I just pull over on the side of the freeway while it's snowing and just put my hazards on and sit there like, what am I supposed to do? So, of course, I Google what the light's supposed to mean, and basically, it's like, yeah, you could pretty much ruin your car if you keep driving. Please don't ask me what the light is. I could Google it. I mean, I did take a picture, but at the time, it just feels like such a crazy memory. But the point is, it was like, don't drive. So I'm like, okay, I have AAA. I'll just call them. Well, I couldn't find my card. So I'm trying to log in like online, but it's not letting me. So I have to text my ex. And I'm like, hey, so I'm on the side of the freeway and I need the AAA. Can you give me the number? Like, what's our membership number? And he was like, oh, well, I just canceled you off the membership. And granted, like, I was the one paying for the membership. So I'm not trying to be petty, but it like made absolutely no sense to take me off the membership when it was my membership and I was the one paying for it. So I just started crying and I was like, why would you do that? And it was so emotional for me because it was one of the first times I was like, I don't have a husband anymore to help me in this situation. And I don't have a dad. Again, that continued. So it was just like, I don't know what to do. I'm on the side of the road. I don't have AAA now. I don't have a husband and I don't have a dad. And, like, I do have uncle I'm just not good at asking for help. I'm not, out of my like, anybody 2 steps removed. I mean, I do have uncles. They're men I probably could have asked for help, but I never want anyone to feel like I'm, like, using them, and I know that maybe people don't, but it's just really hard for me to ask for help. So it's just really nice when you have someone you can depend on, like your father, like your husband, or AAA, which you pay monthly or yearly for. So, I was like, "What am I gonna do?" So I end up calling, like, all these tow trucks, no one's answering. I finally get this guy and he answers and I tell him, and he's like, "Well, you should probably get off the freeway." And he's so patient and kind. I don't know this man, nothing. He's acting like a dad. And I just wanna cry because he was the sweetest. Honestly, I probably should have jotted down the name of this company and sent him something because he was just so patient with me, and I'm, like, kind of hysterical because I just it's not just because I'm on the side of the road and I can't go hiking now and I can't drive my car, but I'm also supposed to be taking that car to Tennessee, and I also have a BMW, which is not inexpensive to do anything to, which I wouldn't even have picked that car if it was up to me, but neither here nor there. So, there's just everything. So, long story short, he pretty much calmly gets me off the road and tells me, like, "Look, you can probably drive this far at least to get to the dealership, but the whole thing, the whole 9 yards." So, I drive it as far as I can before I ask one of my best friends to come get me and my dog, because at the time I have my dog in the car too, and then follow me to drop it off at the dealership. So this is just a whole emotional day. So yes, afterwards, tequila was involved because I just was so stressed. But why I'm telling you this is that finally they looked at my car at the dealership and pretty much everything was wrong. And it was gonna they were like, "We're trying to get to it." And I'm like, "I'm on a timeline. I'm trying to move my stuff to the storage unit. Now I don't have a car. Like, I've got things I've got to wrap up and do before I'm moving out of state." And so that was stressful enough. Well, they finally call me back to say that they can fix it, but this is how long it's going to take and this is how much. And when they told me how much it was going to be to fix it, I literally just bawled because it was probably more than the car was worth. And I'm like, "Why is this happening? Am I not supposed to move? Like, why would this happen like a week or 2 before I'm moving?" Like, I'm so confused. And I was like, "What? I don't wanna buy a new car because I do wanna buy a house, so I don't wanna have this new car payment. I don't wanna drive a new car across the country. I just wanna get this one to Tennessee." So, I finagled my way into at least getting a rental that worked out perfectly because it was like some big X5 that I could actually move stuff in, and so that was nice. So I saw the positive there, but I ended up still paying way too much to fix this car. And when I came in, he said, "Well, what do you wanna fix?" I said, "Whatever will get me to Tennessee." And then I literally laid on the floor crying hysterically. Like, it wasn't even just the money, which, it just felt, like, so unfair because if you add and I don't wanna say unfair because I'm grateful for everything, but in that moment, that's what it felt like. And on top of that, I mean, just to add, like, everything that was going on, like, I'm changing my whole life, and then not even does my car break and I have to spend all this money to fix it, and I'm waiting for them to get me this rental car to use. But then, like, not even a few months prior to this or maybe a month, the before he bought it, the house, the heater went out. So I was, like, freezing until I figured out that and I don't really ever use the thermostat, like, noted that when your dad and your husband just said, "Leave the thermostat alone your whole life," like, and your roommates never let you touch it really either, or you never had a need to, like, I didn't know how they worked very well, so I thought I didn't know what was going on, and the heater was out. So it was 30 degrees in my house for, like, a full I don't know, probably less than 30 degrees, I don't even know. And I had to, like, get a heater from Costco, and I'm sorry, Costco, and then I returned it. But and I ended up paying a whole bunch of money to fix the furnace. So it was just, like, one thing after another when I'm just trying to leave this life. And I wanted to say all this, and I'm kinda jumping around, but the point of all of these things is that I swear I was being tested so hard. Like, does this girl really wanna move? Is she really doing this? Because all of the things that transpired were just so difficult to kinda get through. Even the day that I closed on selling my house to my ex-husband, my old boss, who told me I could move to Tennessee and was so supportive of my divorce, told me she was leaving the company. And I was like, "Well, I'm moving. I just sold my house." So when I tell you that every last little stressful thing that could possibly happen was happening in these last few months up to me moving to Tennessee, it was such a time. And I think I want to remind us all in this is that sometimes when everything feels like it's falling apart, sometimes it's really coming together. And I honestly wouldn't change all of those things, but they made me like second guess my leaving so much because I was like, how? And I think sometimes whatever you want to believe in, you know, tests you to see if you really want what you say you want. And I'm not saying that everything that is meant for you isn't easy because I definitely believe that you shouldn't have to force things in your life if they're meant for you. But I also think sometimes there's a little bit of a test to know, do you really want it? Are you willing to roll with the harder things to get what you want? And if your actions show that you still have your eye on the prize, it will all work out. So the car got fixed just in time, all the happy things. And one of my best girls comes over. We kind of do a whole little craziness of this is the last night I'm ever gonna be in this house. And it was very like crazy to me to leave it forever. And we woke up in the morning and headed to Tennessee. And it was just such an interesting road trip. We made it in 4 days. I will say that that story is probably for another time, but it was great. But we get to Tennessee, and I think I, like, briefly mentioned this. We get to Tennessee, and the very next morning we wake up in the Airbnb, Morgan Wallen announces his, like, free concert at Bridgestone. So I get her up, we go get in line. I've never even, like, done anything like this. We literally just got to Nashville, and now Morgan Wallen's doing a free concert, and we moved some meetings around. We both worked virtually, and so we just moved some meetings around, and we got in line with the, I don't know, thousands of other people, and somehow got tickets. Thank you, Morgan Wallen. And that was just like it was just for the plot. So we're in the East Nashville Airbnb, and there's like a tornado watch, and our power is out. And I called the Airbnb host and I was like, "Hey, so I need to curl my hair because I'm going to Morgan Wallen tonight and we don't have any power." And she's like, "Okay." She's like, "You can come to my house and curl your hair if you want, or I have an Airbnb on Broadway that is available tonight and you guys could just stay there." Well, duh. So things just seemingly work out beautifully. Like, go through a little bit of the struggle, and here you go. So we end up packing up, the stuff for the concert. We go get ready at this cutest Airbnb. So great. Start drinking some moonshine. Go to the Morgan Wallen concert. Literally buy way too many drinks because we didn't have to buy any concert tickets. And have like this probably time on Broadway that I will never even be able to have again, because it was the first time I had had my own friend with me on Broadway, and I'd really only been to Broadway, like, one other time. So it's, like, my second time on Broadway, and there was so many people because of the concert, and it was just, like, the best time ever. And after that, we were back in my Airbnb in East, and she ended up leaving a week later. And I can tell you when she first left, I was like, "Okay, now I'm officially, like, living in Tennessee alone." And there were, like, so many things that I loved about it. Like, I'll be honest, girl, I love you, but I was, like, ready for my own alone time. And I think that I realized that I was going to be okay because I really learned that I like my own company. And now that I was like, I had left the chaos that was back in Utah and the house I had to deal with, and my car made it here. And I didn't have to think about any of my things or anything from back home. None of that, like everything escaped me. And I think one thing that I didn't mention on the drive back that kind of gave me a little added peace was that when we stopped in Oklahoma, I love Oklahoma City. So I wanted to show her Oklahoma. And we had stopped in Oklahoma. And at the time, my ex was now going back to the house he hadn't been in for a while that I left. And the whole time we're driving, making the drive, he's like, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. So I'm driving. I'm not going to like have a conversation while I'm driving across the country. So I'm like, I'll let you know when, yada, 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 all that. Well, finally, he's like pressing it, and we're in Oklahoma, and I'm like, okay, fine. I'm in the hotel. I'll call him for a minute. And this is the last time I spoke to him in Oklahoma. And I don't remember if I said you can call me or I called him, but we talked on the phone, and he was like just upset at probably everything that I left. I have always been more of like a sentimental type person with a lot of things, but I didn't take a single wedding photo or really any type of memory of our life. And I didn't do that to be spiteful. I just didn't want to carry the heaviness and weight of the things because they were already heavy for me to think about. And I had made the decision to leave those things in the past. So why would I bring any of the reminders with me? And don't get me wrong, I still, and now it's been, over a year since it was finalized, coming up on 2 years since the separation. Like it was my identity. Being with him was who I was for so long. I'm never going to just forget that. I don't need wedding pictures to remind me of what it was like to get married for the first time. I just couldn't. So he's calling me and he's upset, and he was never like a real big angry or yeller guy, but he's upset and it's fine. And I'm just like, you need to stop holding on. And he's like, I'm not. I'm like, great. And just the whole conversation just didn't feel like it served either of us. So I said, okay, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm already gone. I not coming back to clean the tub. You didn't clean it our whole marriage. I'm sure you can figure it out now. And that was really rude and petty, but it's kind of like at this point, it's like, I'm sorry, but the last thing on my mind was cleaning the tub for you. Like, I had a lot of other things going on. I think you can handle it for once. First time in, 15 years, I'm sure you'll be okay or whatever. I don't know the last time he cleaned a tub, but the point is. So and I don't mean that I've liked being a wife that kept her house up. So I'm not going to pretend to say that I didn't enjoy cooking and cleaning to some extent for as being a wife. Like I took that role on, and I think that like also I'll throw it in there, but growing up Mormon and just the things that I saw and how we women are, like that was just something that I didn't see as like not my something I wanted to do for my husband. I'm not saying we were never a team, like he would definitely helped, but I'm just saying I'm not complaining about that because I like to keep my house clean for me even now still. So I don't know. I digress. But the point is, and to any people out there, like girls out there that don't like to cook and clean, like I am no judgment zone here. I'm just saying I do enjoy those things. I do enjoy a clean house and I absolutely love to cook. I'm just not going to clean the tub before I move across the country. That wasn't on the to-do list. So anyways, so I just end up we're talking on the phone in Oklahoma. I'm in almost in tears. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And work stuff had been coming up on top of that. And so I was just overloaded with just stress. So we hung up the phone and I blocked him. And the last time I talked to him was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I haven't heard his voice since I've been in Tennessee. And it's just crazy to think that people in your life can just one day no longer be in your life anymore. And not because they're not good people, and not because you didn't share good memories, and nothing like that. Just they're no longer there. It's a very interesting thing to think about, but it's also kind of just like that's why I think I've been able to let go of so much when I got to Tennessee and people are asking me like, "Aren't you afraid to be alone?" And it's like, "No. I really enjoy my own company. I'm my favorite person to be around because I'm literally all I have." Losing my dad showed me that people you love aren't there forever and they can leave sooner than you think they should. And then leaving my ex-husband showed me that I if I was with someone for that long and felt like I grew up and became a whole different person in the time we were together, and then I no longer talk to them, speak to them at all, don't know anything about their life, I really don't have an attachment to much of anything. I think I learned the art of detachment when I got to Tennessee, when my friend left and it was just me in that Airbnb. And I'm not saying not don't love deeply and don't try to do and find things that set your soul on fire and to, you know, take chances on all the things that you love, but nothing meant for you will have to be forced and you don't have to attach yourself to it. Because even if it's yours, it can still leave. It was just yours then, but might not be yours forever. I think that's like a beautiful and a scary thought, I guess, because I'm so happy that I can just release things and realize that something else will come and something better will come. And I think we all can gain a lot from just being able to detach from things. But then I think it's also so what I'll say is scary about that is that when you have that mindset, I guess it's crossed my mind that if I ever or when I get married again, I guess I should say that I think that I would, then I would want it to be forever. But if I think like that, the thought of detachment means maybe something wouldn't be forever. So I have to be okay with either way. I think all of us just have to be able to know that we just have to cherish every moment with the things that we have that we love because we just don't know. But what we know is that we have ourselves and we can enjoy our own company forever and ever and ever. And I again, it's a blessing and a curse because I'm so happy on my own, but I'm also such a lover girl. Like I said, I'm my lover girl era, my calm lover girl era. So it's a weird life is a weird balance like that. But as I'm wrapping this up, I guess I didn't get into all of the highs and lows that were my time in that East Nashville Airbnb, but I will dive in at some point to those stories because that was a ride. And I'm really glad I landed in the house I did and not living in East Tennessee though, even though it was absolutely beautiful. So the song that takes me to that East Tennessee Airbnb though, I have to mention, it just came out. Obviously, Morgan Wallen's new last album had just came out at the time. So that always takes me back to that timeline. I love that about music. So that whole album was literally like everything. But I listened to Record High by Dylan Marlowe on repeat like a million times. And you should hear it. It's a great song. And I think it just summed up it's like record high, and if you listen to the lyrics, I mean, obviously, it's like a play on words, but there was so much going on, but really my life felt like a record high too, even though that's not necessarily what the song was suggesting, because it was almost like it was a record high, but it was lows, and that's really what East Nashville Airbnb was, like some of the highest highs and lowest lows, but loving just being by myself. And I actually went during that time at that Airbnb in East Nashville. I drove up to Knoxville to see Dylan Marlowe play a show at Cotton Eye Joe's, which I had never been to before, which apparently is world famous, which being from Utah, I had not heard of it, but it is really cool and I would suggest it to anyone, but it's definitely a different vibe. And I will tell you that that concert and that trip to Knoxville was and it was, like, my 2nd time being in Knoxville, maybe my 3rd, I'm trying to remember the timelines, but at least I think it was my 2nd, and I remember that no, it was my 2nd. I remember that Cotton Eye Joe's was wild, and after the concert, it was, like, it was St. Patty's Day, so it was crazier, and after the concert, like, there was a lot of, like, dancing, and it has a good dance floor, and I'm dancing it up. I will tell a story because I just wanna end on I just sometimes was, like, looking at my life, like, I really have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna go with it, like I said at the beginning. So I'm at Cotton Eye Joe's, we're dancing to, all the country songs, line dancing, all the things. So I meet some guy from originally from Kentucky, lives in Knoxville, and we're dancing it up. Well, somehow we leave and go to Waffle House. So this is now like my 3rd time ever at Waffle House. Once in Dallas, once the last time I went to Knoxville, and now my 2nd time, 3rd time at Waffle House, 2nd time at the Knoxville Waffle House. So I can still count on one hand how many times I've been to Waffle House. So I'm there and we're sitting there. I don't even know this guy. He's just, we're just talking it up. This guy was like, I don't even know. This was like I was another planet. I'll tell you why we ended up at Waffle House because we were dancing all night. He knew like so many people there. I don't even know, but I guess he's from Knoxville. So when in Rome. So he's knowing all these people. Not sure if that was a relevant statement for, anyways, when in Knoxville, he's going around and like people are like, oh, hey, and like coming up to him. And he was like telling these people that we were engaged. So they were like buying us shots. I mean, I didn't really know that was like a thing, but I mean, I just went along with it. So they're like, oh my gosh, I'm really blah. And I was just like, okay, yeah. So then it's like, what? Like, what is happening? It's St. Patrick's Day. I just saw Dylan Marlowe sing Record High that I've been like loving, and I am just like, okay, cool. And then I just start country dancing in this bar and meet some guy who decides to tell everyone he kind of knows that we're engaged. So, and then they're like, randoms are just buying us shots over that. Like I couldn't even write that. And I'm just going with it. So so this is why we end up at Waffle House. 5 shots later. So we get to Waffle House, we're sitting there. I'm pretty drunk. I don't even remember what I ordered. We're For some reason, we're sitting on the same side of the booth, mind you, and these 2 guys walk over. The Waffle House is packed, by the way. It's the Waffle House over by Cotton Eye Joe's. So if you know, you know. I didn't know, but it's apparently a hot spot. So this Waffle House is like packed. There's not enough seats. So, but we're, for whatever reason, sitting on the same side. And these 2 men walk over. One's like an older guy and one's like a younger guy. It's like an older cowboy, like probably like in his 60s. And then this other guy that's probably like 20 something. And they just slide into the booth with us. And I don't know them. And I'm just going, okay, whatever. Well, then the next thing I know, this guy that I'm with, another Knoxville, I don't even, Kentucky Knox, I guess. He's like, hey, like talking to them. And they're like having this conversation. The older gentleman was like in rodeos and like they were going on about this. And I'm just listening and the 3 of them talk. And I'm just drunk eating Waffle House, like just like taking it all in. And the conversations are all over the place. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. So Kentucky Knox pays for our food. We go to leave and we're leaving and I'm like, who are those guys? How do you know those guys? And he's like, I don't. And I was like, what? He was like, I guess they just sat there because there's nowhere else to sit. And I was like, what is happening? Like, you guys literally were just talking like to each other, like, and I was like, so you've never met? He's like, I've seen him before though. And I was like, "So is that like a dad and son?" He's like, "No, I don't even think think they barely know each other." Like, the whole thing was just weird. I was like, I don't know if it's the combination of just being a Utah girl, which I can't even imagine. We don't even have Waffle Houses, let alone have the kind of things that happen in Waffle Houses. I mean, maybe in Rose Park, but like, I just didn't even know. It was just a time. And that's when I realized, like, Heather, it's gonna be just fine. You're gonna just get to do a lot of random things with a lot of random people, and it's gonna be stuff you've never got to do before. So, just go with it. You don't know what you're doing, but it's kinda entertaining, and you got free Waffle House. I mean, that was a whole $6. Just kidding, I'm not that kinda girl trying to just get free stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Not that there's any like, sprinkle, sprinkle, I get it, but just saying. Alright, well, I'm gonna end this by saying, I appreciate so much that you're even still listening right now. I know I was a little high and low here, but I really just wanted to remind you that life is not that serious, and it always works out. Even when your car breaks down and it ends up costing more to fix it than it's even worth, it still gets you to Tennessee. It's just you have to not stop when everything is trying to see how much you want it. How much do you want it? Because I think that there's so many times in our lives that we want to do something big, but then we get those tests and we're just not ready to push through them. We want to stay in the comfort. We want to say, oh, this is a reason why we shouldn't. And so the next time I challenge you that you're faced with, maybe this is a sign I shouldn't do it. If you really feel in your soul you should still do it, even with that challenge, push through it because it's testing to see how much you want it. And whenever you really want something and it's meant for you, it always works out. It always does. So, cheers to doing things that are hard or getting through things that are hard to be where you're supposed to be. This was Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. Until next time, you matter.